Alien warrior women mocked Earth until they saw earthly man. Sci-Fi, HFY stories. The sky over Earth darkened without warning. At first, people thought it was only clouds, but soon the light disappeared, and shadows stretched across cities, villages, and oceans. Everyone looked up. What they saw made their hearts freeze. Huge ships floated above the atmosphere, shapes of iron and fire. They were larger than mountains, stretching so wide that they hid the sun itself. Their surfaces glowed with strange symbols. The world had never seen anything like them. Children cried. Families gathered in fear. The news broadcasted images of the ships across every screen. Governments tried to calm the people, but their voices trembled. Then, a voice came. It was not human. It was sharp, cold, and proud. The message echoed in every language, as if the words were forced into human minds. People of Earth, you are nothing. You are weak. You are prey. The voice belonged to the alien warrior queens. They appeared on the screens, tall figures with shining armor, their hair tied like crowns, their eyes filled with cruel laughter. These women were not like humans. They looked stronger, faster, and older than time itself. They mocked the leaders of Earth. You call yourselves protectors? You cannot even protect your own world. We have crossed galaxies, and everywhere we went, we crushed those who stood before us. You will kneel, or you will burn. The warrior women landed in the great cities. Their soldiers marched through streets with perfect discipline. Their armor gleamed under Earth's sun, and their weapons glowed with strange fire. Humans hid in fear as the alien soldiers forced them into squares and marketplaces. The queens laughed. They mocked Earth's weapons, calling them toys. They compared humans to insects, weak and soft. One queen raised her hand and crushed a steel car with her bare fingers, showing her strength. "This is the power of our sisters," she said. "And you think your little armies can stop us?" Everywhere they went, they showed their power. They burned aircraft from the sky. They froze tanks with a single blast. Humanity looked broken. But, in the middle of this chaos, in one ruined city, there was someone different. A man stood tall in the open street while others ran to hide. Smoke rose around him and buildings burned. Alien soldiers marched past, laughing at the fear of the humans. But this man did not bow. He did not run. He stood still, watching. One alien warrior noticed him. She stopped and tilted her head. She expected him to fall to his knees, but he did not. His eyes were calm, almost cold. She pointed her weapon at him. "Kneel," she ordered. He said nothing. He did not move. The queen who led the march laughed. "Look at him. One human thinks he can stand against us?" The soldiers laughed with her. Still, the man did not bow. He only whispered so quietly that only those close could hear. "You have made a mistake." The words carried no fear. The alien warrior frowned. For a moment she felt something she had never felt before, a spark of unease. Why did this one not kneel? Why did he not tremble? Around him, other humans watched. For the first time, they saw one of their own refusing to break. The queen narrowed her eyes. She turned to her sisters and said, "Keep him alive. I want to see how long his defiance lasts." The soldiers grabbed him and dragged him through the street. But the man's eyes stayed sharp, his chin high. He did not look beaten. He looked like someone waiting for his chance. The aliens laughed as they pulled him away, but their laughter felt weaker than before. Something had changed. The people who saw him began to whisper. In a world filled with fear, his defiance was like a flame in the dark. That night, as the alien ships covered the stars, the warrior queens sat in their shining halls. They mocked Earth again, saying humans were pathetic. But one of them, the queen who saw the man, stayed silent. She remembered his eyes. She remembered the calm voice that said, "You have made a mistake." And for the first time she wondered if maybe, just maybe, Earth was not as helpless as they believed. The night grew cold. The skies remained filled with alien fire. But somewhere in the heart of Earth, one man's silence had planted the seed of defiance. The battle for Earth had only just begun. Alien warrior women mocked Earth until they saw earthly man. Sci-Fi, HFY stories. The next morning, Earth woke under the shadow of alien ships. The skies were not blue anymore. They were gray, heavy, and filled with fire. People no longer asked if Earth had been conquered. They only asked how long they could survive. The alien warrior queens spread across the planet like a storm. Indomitable. Every capital, they forced the leaders of Earth to gather. Cameras were set and the entire world watched. The humans sat at long tables, their faces pale. Soldiers guarded them, but the soldiers' guns looked useless, like sticks against thunder. The tallest queen stood before them. Her armor was black with gold lines. Her hair flowed like fire, and her voice cut like iron. "Your world is weak," she declared. "We take it as our own. From this day, Earth belongs to the sisterhood." The other queens laughed. Their voices echoed through the great halls where humans once ruled. One queen lifted a globe of Earth from the table and crushed it in her hand. Dust fell between her fingers. "Your weapons cannot touch us," another queen said. "Your armies cannot face us. You are nothing but fragile creatures hiding in dirt and stone. You are insects." The humans lowered their eyes. Some trembled. Some prayed. Others bit their lips to hide their anger. But none of them spoke back. None. Except one. Far away, in the same ruined city as before, the man who had stood unbroken was brought to a public square. Alien soldiers forced crowds of humans to watch as he was dragged to the center. The queen, who had noticed him the day before, stepped forward. She raised her voice so all could hear. "Behold your hero," she shouted with laughter. "This one thought he could resist us. He thought his silence meant strength. Let us see how long his silence lasts now." The soldiers laughed. They shoved him to his knees, but he did not fall. He kept his back straight, his head high. One soldier pushed harder. "Kneel, insect." The man turned his head slowly, looked at her, and said nothing. The crowd gasped. Even in chains, even surrounded by alien warriors, he did not yield. The queen narrowed her eyes. She expected fear. She expected begging. But instead she saw calmness in his face. "You mock us," she said to him. "Do you not understand? We own this planet now. Your people belong to us. Your cities are ours. Your lives are ours." Still, he said nothing. The silence was heavy. It made the soldiers uneasy. Some of them shifted in place, as if the lack of fear was louder than any scream. Finally, the man spoke. His voice was steady, deep, and clear. "You may hold our cities, you may burn our skies, but you will never hold our spirit. And one day that spirit will rise against you." The square went silent. Humans stared with wide eyes. Even the aliens stopped laughing. The queen's lips curled into a cruel smile. Brave words for a doomed creature. She lifted her weapon, its tip glowing red. The humans in the crowd cried out. Children hid their faces. But the man did not move. His eyes stayed locked on hers, and in that moment something strange happened. One alien soldier standing at the back felt her hands tremble. She had fought countless battles across countless worlds. She had seen fear, terror, and hopelessness in the eyes of every species her queens conquered. But never this. Never a man who stared into death without flinching. The queen lowered her weapon, almost reluctantly. She wanted to kill him. But something in her heart told her this death would not bring victory, it would bring legend. Instead, she turned to the crowd. "Look at him," she shouted. "This is your strongest human, this is the bravest among you, and still he cannot stop us. He is nothing. You are nothing. Remember this." The soldiers forced the man away. But the humans who watched did not feel weaker. They felt something stir inside them. For the first time since the invasion, they saw hope. That night, whispers spread across the ruins. There is one who did not bow. There is one who stood tall. The story moved from city to city faster than fire. The queens heard the whispers too. Some of them laughed, saying it meant nothing. But others grew uneasy. One man cannot stop us, they told themselves. Yet the unease grew, because deep inside they knew the truth. Fear spreads quickly, but so does courage. And courage had begun to spread across Earth. Alien warrior women mocked Earth until they saw earthly man. Sci-Fi, HFY stories. The story of the man spread across Earth like fire through dry grass. People whispered his defiance in dark rooms, in broken shelters, and in ruined streets. They whispered about how he stood tall, how he did not kneel, how he spoke words of strength even with a weapon pointed at his chest. For the first time since the alien ships arrived, humans felt something stronger than fear. They felt pride. They felt courage. The alien warrior queens, however, laughed at the stories. Sitting in their shining halls built inside captured human palaces, they mocked the man as if he were a clown. One man cannot change a world, one queen said. Let the humans dream, said another. Dreams make defeat even more painful. But not all of them were calm. The queen who had seen him first, the one whose weapon hesitated, remembered his words. You have made a mistake. The sound of his voice kept returning to her mind, even when she tried to push it away. The man, still alive, moved through the ruins of his city. Chains had been placed on him, but somehow he slipped free. Some said he escaped. Others whispered the aliens let him go, just to watch what he would do. He did not hide. Instead, he walked openly among the broken streets, helping the wounded, sharing food, lifting debris with his bare hands. His silence was stronger than any speech, and his calm face gave people hope. Children followed him. Old men saluted him. Women who had lost their families looked at him and felt the strength to stand again, the aliens noticed. From the shadows of ruined buildings, armored warriors watched him. They reported to their queens. The humans gather around him. They listen to him. They follow him. The queens laughed once more. So what? Let the little creatures hope. Tomorrow we will crush that hope again. But the truth was different. Hope was spreading faster than their armies could control. One evening, as the sun sank behind smoke-filled skies, the man climbed a pile of rubble where a human monument once stood. Hundreds of survivors gathered around him. Their eyes were empty, filled with hunger and loss. But when he spoke, those eyes began to change. We have been called weak, he said, his voice echoing through the ruins. We have been mocked, beaten, and chained. They call us insects. But listen to me. Insects do not stand. Insects do not fight. And I tell you now, humans fight. We always fight. It is who we are. The crowd stirred. Murmurs grew into shouts. They came to break us, he continued. But they have only woken us. Look at your hands. Look at your hearts. We are not weak. We are the storm that rises when the night is darkest. The people raised their fists. Their voices shouted back in unity. For the first time since the invasion, the ruins of Earth echoed, not with screams of fear, but with the cries of resistance. The alien warrior queens saw it. They saw humans standing taller, refusing to kneel, refusing to stay silent. In one great hall, the queens argued. This man must die, one said. No, another answered. If we kill him, his legend will grow stronger. He is already too strong, a third warned. Look at how they follow him. The first queen struck the table with her hand, cracking the stone. Then we will break him in front of them. We will make his courage look like foolishness. And so, they prepared a challenge. The next day, alien soldiers stormed the ruins and seized the man again. But this time, the people did not cry out in despair. They shouted, they threw stones, they tried to fight, even though they were unarmed. The soldiers beat them down, but the fire of defiance had already been lit. The man was dragged before the queens once more. This time, thousands of humans were forced to gather in the central square of the city. The Lid Queen stood tall, her armor glowing in the light of the alien ships above. Her voice boomed through the air. People of Earth, here is your so-called Hero, here's the man you follow. Watch as we crush him. Watch as your last hope dies before your eyes. The crowd grew silent. The man stood in chains again, but his eyes remained steady. He looked at the queen with no fear. Then, slowly, a smile appeared on his face. The queen frowned. Why do you smile, human? He raised his head. His voice was calm, but it carried through the entire square. Because you still do not understand. I am not the hope of Earth. I am only the spark. The fire is already burning. The humans roared with sudden energy. Their voices rose, shouting, crying, refusing to be silent. The queens looked around, their proud faces shaking with anger. The lead queen raised her hand. Enough. If he thinks himself strong, then let him prove it. Tomorrow he will face one of us in battle, and when he falls, his people will fall with him. The crowd gasped. The man said nothing, but inside his calm eyes burned the fire of defiance. That night, the people whispered once more. The man would fight an alien warrior, alone with nothing but his hands. Everyone thought it was madness. Yet no one doubted he would stand tall until the end, and somewhere in the hearts of the queens there was a shadow of fear, for they knew, if he stood again tomorrow, he might change everything. Alien warrior women mocked Earth until they saw. Earthly man, Sci-Fi, HFY stories. The next sunrise was unlike any other. The alien ships hovered low over the cities, their engines humming like angry storms. From the skies, beams of light cut through the smoke, guiding humans toward a massive square built by the conquerors. The alien warrior queens had called for a spectacle, a trial of strength, a show meant to crush hope forever. Soldiers dragged the man through the ruins, chains around his wrists, but his eyes were calm, steady, and unbroken. Crowds of humans were forced to follow. Mothers clutched their children. Fathers clenched their fists. Everyone knew what was coming. The square was enormous. Alien banners hung from broken human buildings, painted with symbols of conquest. In the center stood a wide arena made of steel and stone. Thousands of alien soldiers filled the stands, their voices rising in sharp cries of excitement. To them, this was sport, a game, a way to laugh at the weakness of humans. The warrior queens entered last. Their armor shone in the red light of their ships, their faces filled with pride and cruelty. The lead queen raised her voice, and her words thundered across the square. People of Earth, you believe one man can stand against us. You whisper his name as if he is fire. Today you will see the truth. Today, your fire will be drowned. The crowd of humans grew silent. They looked at the man in chains, their last hope. The queens turned to him. The lead queen sneered, "You will fight one of us. If you fall, your people fall. If you lose, their hope dies. Do you accept?" The soldiers removed his chains. The man stood tall, his shoulders broad, his eyes locked on the queen. He did not flinch. He did not speak right away. Instead, he slowly looked at the faces of the humans gathered in the crowd. Fear filled their eyes, but beneath that fear, he saw something new: belief. Then he spoke, his voice firm and clear. "I accept." The square erupted. Alien soldiers cheered. Human voices cried out in shock. The lead queen laughed. "Very well, face your doom." She pointed to her right, and a massive alien warrior stepped forward. She was taller than the rest, her armor black with silver spikes, her weapon a long spear glowing with energy. She was the Sisterhood's champion, undefeated across countless worlds. The humans gasped. Some covered their mouths in despair. How could one man, unarmed, stand against such power? The man looked at his opponent, then at his empty hands. Slowly, he clenched them into fists. His eyes did not leave hers. The queen raised her arm. "Begin!" The warrior charged, her spear striking like lightning. The man rolled aside, the ground shaking where the weapon struck. Dust rose. The crowd gasped. The warrior swung again, faster, harder. But the man moved with surprising speed, dodging each strike, always standing back up. He had no weapon, but he had something else: endurance, determination, the will to never give up. The alien soldiers laughed at first. "He runs like prey," they shouted. But as minutes passed, their laughter faded. The human was not prey. He was enduring every strike, every attack, refusing to fall. The champion growled in frustration. She thrust her spear forward, but the man caught the shaft with both hands. The weapon burned against his skin, but he did not let go. He twisted, pulling with all his strength. The champion stumbled just for a moment, but it was enough. The crowd gasped again. For the first time, an alien warrior had lost balance to a human. The man did not celebrate. He stood firm, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His eyes stayed locked on his opponent. The queen, watching, leaned forward, her smile gone. Her soldiers shifted uneasily. Something was wrong. This was not how the trial was supposed to go. The champion attacked again, angrier now. She swung with power meant to kill. The man dodged, rolled, and stood back up. Blood marked his arms, sweat covered his face, but still he fought. The humans in the crowd began to shout. At first it was only a few voices, then more, then hundreds. They shouted his name, they shouted their belief. "Stand tall. Fight. Do not fall." Their cries grew louder, shaking the square. The queens turned their heads, frowning. This was not fear anymore. This was fire. The man heard their voices. He tightened his fists, raised his chin, and faced the champion again. This time he moved forward. He struck with his bare hand, a punch filled with all the strength he had left. It landed against the champion's faceplate with a crack. She stumbled back. The entire square went silent. Alien soldiers stared in shock. Humans shouted with joy. For the first time in history, a human had made an alien warrior stagger. The champion roared in rage. The queen's faces darkened, and the man, he stood tall, bloodied but unbroken, his eyes shining with defiance. The lead queen rose to her feet. "Enough. Tomorrow, the trial continues. And tomorrow, he will fall." The crowd erupted with noise, half cheers, half roars of anger. The man stood in the arena, breathing hard but still standing tall. He looked at the humans in the crowd and spoke with a voice like thunder. "I am not finished, and neither is Earth." The crowd exploded into shouts of hope. Even as the aliens tried to silence them, their voices carried into the night. Alien. Warrior women mocked Earth until they saw earthly man, Sci-Fi, HFY stories. The morning came heavy with silence. Smoke still hung over the ruined city, and the alien ships hovered like vultures in the gray sky. People gathered once more in the massive square, their hearts pounding. Today was the second day of the trial, the day the man was expected to die. Alien soldiers marched in formation, their boots striking the stone like thunder. The alien warrior queens entered the arena, their armor shining cruelly under the red light of their ships. Their champion, the tall warrior with the glowing spear, stepped forward again. Her face was hard with anger. Yesterday she had been embarrassed. Today she meant to erase that shame with blood. The man walked into the arena unchained. His arms bore bruises, his skin carried cuts, but his eyes were calm. He looked smaller than the champion, weaker, yet when the humans in the crowd saw him, they shouted. Their voices filled the air. "Stand tall. Fight. Do not bow." The queens frowned. This was not the silence of fear. This was defiance. The lead queen raised her hand. "The trial continues. If the human falls, his world falls with him. Begin!" The champion charged, her spear cutting the air with deadly speed. The man dodged, rolling across the ground, dust rising around him. The spear slammed into the stone, cracking it like glass. He rose quickly, blood dripping from his arm, but his fists clenched tighter. The champion struck again, faster. The man ducked, moved sideways, and avoided the blow. He had no weapon, but he had instinct. He had endurance. Each time she attacked, he refused to fall. The alien soldiers jeered at first. "Kill him! End this insect. But as the minutes stretched on, their laughter faded, because the human was still standing. The champion roared and swung her spear in a wide arc. The man barely avoided the strike, the weapon grazing his shoulder. Pain seared through him, but he pressed forward. With a sudden burst of strength, he slammed his fist against her chest plate. The sound echoed through the arena. The warrior stumbled back. The crowd gasped. Humans shouted louder than before. The queen's eyes narrowed in anger. The man did not stop. He moved again, striking, dodging, standing tall no matter how many times he was thrown down. Each time he rose, the humans cheered louder. Rise again. Fight. Earth stands with you. The champion's strikes grew wild with rage. She was faster, stronger, but anger clouded her focus. The man saw this. He used it. He let her swing wide, then slipped past her guard. He landed another strike, this time against her faceplate. The mask cracked. Gasps filled the arena. The champion staggered back, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. She had never been touched like this, never by any species, let alone a human with no weapon. The queen stood in fury. End him, shouted the lead queen. The champion obeyed, charging with all her might. She raised her spear high, aiming for his chest. The man braced himself. He could not dodge forever. At the last moment he twisted. The spear pierced the ground instead. With all his strength, he grabbed the weapon and pulled. The champion fought to hold it, but his grip was iron. The weapon shook. The ground trembled. Then with a final cry, he wrenched it free. The spear flew from her hands. Silence fell. The humans gasped. Even the alien soldiers froze. The champion, the undefeated, warrior of countless battles, stood unarmed. The man held her spear. His body trembled, his arms bled, but his eyes burned with fire. The humans erupted into wild cheers, their voices shook the city walls. Earth fights. Earth rises. Earth will never kneel. The champion growled and rushed him with her bare hands. They clashed, fists against fists. She was stronger, but he was relentless. He endured every blow, every strike, refusing to collapse. And with each punch he gave back, she staggered more. Finally, he struck her jaw with all his strength. The sound cracked like thunder. The champion fell to one knee. The square exploded with human cheers. Even some alien soldiers lowered their eyes, ashamed to see their champion humbled. The man stood tall, the spear at his side, blood running down his arm. He did not raise his voice, but when he spoke, the words carried like fire. Do you see? Now? Humans are not weak. We bleed, we break, but we do not bow. And we will never bow to you. The humans roared with unstoppable pride. The queens shouted for silence, but their commands were drowned out. The voices of Earth were louder, stronger. The Lead Queen's face twisted in fury. She raised her hand and screamed, "Tomorrow the trial ends. Tomorrow he dies by my hand." But even as her words rang out, the humans shouted louder. Their voices carried into the night, across the ruins, across the world. For the first time, the sisterhood felt something they had never known before. Not victory, not control, but fear. Because one man had done what no one thought possible. He had made the unconquerable bleed, and the fire of Earth was now burning out of control. Alien warrior women mocked Earth until they saw earthly man. Sci-Fi, HFY stories. The night after the second battle was alive with whispers. Across ruined cities, across camps and broken shelters, humans repeated one story. The champion of the aliens fell to her knees. And it was a human who made her kneel. Hope spread like fire in dry grass. People who once hid in silence now spoke with pride. Soldiers who had surrendered their weapons began sharpening blades. Families who had lost everything began to dream again. For the first time since the sky darkened with alien ships, Earth remembered its spirit. But inside the halls of the alien warrior queens, there was no laughter that night. The queens sat in a circle, their armor still glowing faintly from the day's trial. Their faces were hard, their voices sharp. "This human must be destroyed," hissed one queen. Not just destroyed, another said. He must be erased. His name, his story, his memory wiped out. If he survives another day, his legend will outlive us all. But the queen who had first seen him stood silent. She remembered his eyes steady even under her weapon. She remembered his words. You have made a mistake. The longer she thought, the more she wondered if he was right. At dawn, the man was brought back to his cell. His body was covered in bruises and cuts, his arms weak but his spirit unbroken. The guards who dragged him in glanced at him nervously. They had seen their champion fall. They had seen their queens shaken. One guard whispered, "He fights like no other creature we have ever faced." Another replied, "No, he endures. That is worse." Even among the enemy, respect was beginning to grow. In the streets, humans gathered secretly. They lit small fires in the ruins, telling stories of the trial. Children mimicked the man's stance, fists clenched, head high. Old men repeated his words with pride. Humans bleed, humans break, but humans do not bow. The fire of defiance spread faster than alien soldiers could crush it. The next day, the square was filled again. This time, even more people came. Forced by alien soldiers, but willing to see the trial with their own eyes. The air was thick with tension. Everyone knew today could decide Earth's fate. The queens entered, their steps heavier than before. They did not mock, they did not laugh. Their pride had been wounded, and wounded pride was dangerous. The lead, queen raised her hand. Her voice boomed across the square. Today I will end this myself. The human who defies us will fall under my hand. When he falls, your hope falls with him. The crowd of humans grew restless. Some trembled. Others shouted in anger. The man stepped into the arena, his body weak but his eyes blazing. "You think killing me will end hope?" he said. His voice carried to every ear. "You are wrong. Kill me, and 10 more will rise. Kill them, and 100 more will follow. You cannot break what does not kneel." The crowd roared. The queens shouted for silence, but their commands were drowned out by human voices. The duel began. The Lid Queen herself entered the arena. She was taller than the others, stronger, her armor black and gold, her weapon a sword of glowing fire. She moved with speed and power that shook the ground. The man stood unarmed, blood on his lips, yet he stood tall. The queen struck first, her sword cutting through the air. He dodged barely, the blade slicing the ground where he had stood. She struck again, faster, harder, but he rolled away, always rising, always standing. The humans shouted encouragement. The aliens watched with unease. For every strike, every near-death moment the man endured. Minutes passed. Sweat covered his face, blood dripped from his arms, but still he fought. Still he stood. The queen grew angrier. "Why do you not fall? Why do you not break?" she shouted, her sword glowing brighter. The man, breathing hard, looked her in the eyes and said, "Because I am human, and humans stand." The crowd erupted with wild cries. The humans shouted so loudly that their voices shook the arena walls. Even some alien soldiers shifted uneasily, their pride shaken. The queen pressed harder, but her strikes grew reckless. She wanted to end him quickly, but his endurance only grew stronger with every blow he survived. At one moment, he seized the chance. As her sword struck down, he dodged and slammed his fist against her chest plate. The sound rang out like thunder. The queen stumbled back. Gasps filled the air. For the second time, an alien queen had been staggered by a human. The man stood tall, bloodied but proud, and raised his voice. "You came to break Earth, but it is Earth that will break you." The humans roared, their voices louder than the ships above. The queen shouted for silence, but silence no longer existed. The fire of Earth was alive. That night, the queens gathered again. Their voices trembled with rage. "He cannot stand another day," one said. "If he does, we will lose this world," another whispered. But the quiet queen, the one who had seen him first, looked at them and spoke words that chilled the room. "Perhaps we already have." The others glared at her, But deep in their hearts they knew. The turning point had come. The fire of one. Man had spread to millions. And the sisterhood, for the first time in their history, felt the truth. They could conquer Earth's cities. They could burn Earth's skies. But they could not conquer the human spirit. Alien warrior women mocked Earth until they saw earthly man. Sci-Fi, HFY stories. The world held its breath. For days the man had stood against the alien warrior queens. He had faced their champion. He had endured their trial. He had even struck their leader and lived. Each day he survived, the fire inside humanity burned brighter. Now the final trial was called. The queens promised to end it once and for all. The sky above the city was dark with alien ships. Their engines thundered, shaking the ruins below. Humans were dragged into the square by the thousands. The queens wanted every eye to see the end of hope. But instead of fear, the humans came with fire in their hearts. They whispered to one another, "He will stand. He will fight. We will rise." The man was led into the arena again. His body was bruised, his skin cut, his strength nearly gone. But his eyes still burned. He looked not at the queens, but at the people. Their faces, once filled with despair, now shone with belief. The led queen stepped forward. Her voice echoed like thunder. "Today it ends. Today the fire of Earth dies. Watch, humans, as your champion falls." She raised her blade of fire. The crowd went silent. The man stood with no weapon. Blood stained his chest. But when he raised his head, his voice carried across the square. "You came to conquer Earth. You came to make us kneel. But look at us now. Do we kneel? Do we bow? No. We stand. And even if I fall today, Earth will never fall." The crowd roared. Their voices shook the very ground. The queens frowned. For the first time, their pride was not enough to silence the humans. The duel began. The queen swung her blade with deadly force. The man dodged, rolled, and rose again. She struck again, and he blocked with only his arms, blood spraying, yet he still stood. The humans shouted. Each time he rose, their voices grew louder. "Stand tall. Fight. Do not bow." The queen's strikes grew wild. Her pride demanded victory, but the human's endurance mocked her. No matter how many times she struck, he stood. No matter how many times he fell, he rose. At last she raised her blade high, roaring with fury. She struck down with all her strength. The ground shook. Dust filled the air. When the dust cleared, the man was still standing. His body shook. His breath came heavy, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. "You cannot win," he said. His voice was broken, yet it carried like thunder. "Because you fight only with power. We fight with spirit, and spirit cannot die." The humans erupted into wild cries. The sound of their voices rolled across the square, up through the skies, and even into the alien ships above. The alien soldiers faltered. They looked at the humans and felt, for the first time, doubt. Some lowered their weapons. Some even stepped back. The queens looked around in fury. They saw their soldiers hesitate. They saw the humans rise. And they realized the truth. They had already lost. The lead queen tried to speak, but her voice was drowned out by the roar of the humans. The fire of Earth was louder than her pride. The queens retreated to their ships that night. Their voices were bitter, their pride shattered. "We could burn this world to ash," one said. "Yes," another replied, "but ashes cannot bow, and if we stay, we will burn with it." For the first time in their long history, the queens chose retreat. Their ships lifted into the sky, their banners torn down, their voices silent. The humans watched as the darkness faded from the heavens. The stars returned. The sky was theirs again. In the ruined square, the man stood among his people. His body was broken, his strength nearly gone. But when he raised his hand, the crowd fell silent. "We have won not because of me," he said, his voice weak but steady. "We have won because humanity does not kneel. Remember this day. Remember what it means to stand." Tears filled human eyes. They shouted his name, but he only shook his head. "It is not my name you must remember. It is your own. Remember that you are human, and that is enough. From that day, the legend spread across the galaxy. Stories of the man who stood against queens, who defied empires, who carried the fire of Earth in his spirit. Alien civilizations heard the tale. Some mocked it, others feared it, but all remembered it. Because one truth could no longer be denied. Humans may bleed, humans may break, but humans never bow. And so began the legacy of Earth, the legacy of a single man who stood tall, and a people who rose with him. The warrior queens had come to conquer. Instead, they left with silence, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.